Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at another design pattern. The design pattern we're going to look at today is the adapter pattern. This is a structural design pattern which is meant to allow you to convert an object of one type into an object of another type. Many times you'll need to implement the adapter pattern when you're trying to work with third-party resources. Many times I've found myself using this pattern when I'm consuming a web service that I don't control and I want to change their object model into my own object model because I don't want their object model to bleed into my application. Today we're going to take a look at a very simple, very easy example. This is a non-real world example. It's just meant to give you the idea and the concepts. So what it is we're trying to accomplish today is I have a very simple test method here. Doesn't do any assertions, I understand that, but at least shows you what I'm trying to get out of this. I want to do something called, create an instance of my order item gatherer, and I want to get a list of order items. Now, I want to get a list right now. I'm getting that list only from my own internal orders. Now, I'm just using some very simple, hard-coded values here. I'm not not showing anything injected in or any DIOC principles at this point. But what I want to do is I want to hook this up so that I can not only get my own internal orders, but I want to get external orders. And we're going to hook up with some other third-party provider that has the concept of an order item and will allow me to query their system for orders. Now, before I show you their code, why don't we bounce over to my code? What we have in our application is an interface called an iCard item. Anything that's an order item or a card item must implement this interface to be used throughout our application. And it defines a few very simple properties on it: quantity, SKU, price, discount amount, full price. And as you can see, I've got a cart item here which implements iCart item, and we'll basically just push those values back and forth. Now, our third-party vendor, they have a very similar concept, but their class is slightly different and doesn't implement our interface. They have a SKU, but if you notice, their SKU is an integer, whereas mine's a string. Slight difference, not a big deal. Their quantity is an integer as well. They have retail price, discount, and purchase price. Now, what is different is I don't actually want you to calculate the full or provide the full price. I want to calculate it based on the price and the discount amount, but not a big deal. But our dilemma is, how do I get their order items into our system easily and simply and make it so that the consumer of their items don't really care what they are, don't really care how they work. I don't want to simply transform the data entirely from their object into my object because I might need to send the data back across the wire to them. And so I don't want to do translation both times. So what I want to do is I want to use the adapter pattern. So now that we have an understanding of what it is we're looking at in terms of items, and I want to gather items from two different resources, why don't we bounce into the code and start writing some code. Now, the simplest thing I want to do here is I actually want to first create my adapter. And I'm going to come over here and we're going to add a new class. We're going to call this order item. And I want to leave it similar naming structures, what I have as well as what they have. I'm going to make order item implement my iCard item interface. But I'm going to go a step further, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to require that when you create an instance of an order item, you actually inject into it an instance of an item. Let's go ahead and create our property for this. Well, mark that as private. Now, in order to save a bunch of typing, what I need to do is actually go ahead and implement all of my interface methods. And I'll let ReSharper stub those out for me. But to save it a little bit of time, because you really don't want to see me typing over and over again, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste those in. So what I've done here is I've just copied and pasted. But what I've done is actually taken my public interface of quantity, and I've wrapped that around their idea of a quantity. Done the same thing with SKU, and in fact I've actually had to change the SKU from a string to an integer and back and forth. Done it with a price, a discount amount, and as well as a retail price. Again, my interface, I don't want to expose retail or full price to the user to allow them to edit it. That's always a constant. So what I've done right now is I've actually created my adapter. So let's put a little comment here. So if I want to fulfill my objective, which is allow my system to gather order items from multiple resources, I need to go to my item gather. And let's go ahead and create another little method here. And we'll have this return a list of iCard items. And I'm going to say, let's call this get external items. And now my gateway to the other system has a class for me already called the item generator, or item gatherer. And it provides me a method on it called orders. And it will return me a list of orders in their format. Now I need to convert them from their format to my format, and I want to use that adapter we just created. Now I'm going to use some link fun here. So what I've done here is I've created an instance of the external gatherer. I've gathered all the records out of it, and then I've just used some link fun to convert those items into my own new adapter item. Now last but not least, what I want to do is come up here and just make a call into that get external orders method and add that to my result orders. And now at the end of the day, I've got a public method that exposes or expects you to return back a list of iCard items that will call off into two separate systems, one which we own and one which we don't own. It'll take the result of the system we don't own, wrap the items inside of our own class, which is acting as our adapter, and we'll return that back. And when I come back over to my test harness here, I should now be able to complete this round trip and have a list of iCard items that, to the caller, all appear to be from our system. So as you can see, in a matter of 6 or 7 minutes, we've taken a look at the quick adapter pattern, seeing how you can utilize that for your own use. Let's go ahead and take a real quick look at the adapter class we created. And the way we did it is we just wrapped it. There are other ways you can implement the adapter pattern. In our scenario here, we just did it with an object that has properties on it. The same thing applies if your object has methods on it. If maybe the third-party method or class has a signature that you don't want to support natively, so you want to wrap that and simplify the calls. You can do that as well. This should just give you the idea of how it should work. Well, I hope you learned something. Until next time.